Hello once again, folks. Welcome to another episode of I Ruined It, the art series where I take some of your favorite childhood things and ruin them. Due to some changes in location, today's video will be a best of. So without further ado, let's get into it.
Alright guys, so today we're going to be drawing Kermit the Frog. Bear with me, I did not do a good job doing the initial drawing. Hey, the thing that matters is it's still recognizable at the end of the day, right? I mean, Jim Henson famously cut up one of his mother's jackets to make the original Kermit the Frog, so I think we can get away with a little bit of imperfection here and there. Regardless, the point of these videos isn't even to get the baseline image looking good. It's more or less just to see how we can ruin it. Little different coloring on the eyes, you know, make it not just strictly blacked out, but a little bit off on the black color. Give it a little bit more of a cartoony look. This is next to invisible what I'm doing right now, but I'm painting in the whites of Kermit's eyes, just so that if I need to adjust the image layout a little bit later, it'll be easier to do. Next up here, we are going to go through and we're going to color in Kermit's main body, which is going to be this nice kind of limey, froggy color. I guess I really don't have much else in the term for describing it. It's kind of lime, it's kind of not, you know. It's kind of simple stuff. I feel like I talk about this a lot, but you know, with digital art, it's really easy to just go back and erase what you didn't mean to have in certain places. So if any of you guys out there are thinking about taking it up, don't be afraid to make those little accidents, like coloring over the lines. Like, there's always going to be a way to clean it up. Or like right there, if you figure out how to use your layers right, you won't even need to worry about going outside the lines. The layer above it will just handle it for you. But that right there is going to put us at the point where we've pretty much got our reference taken care of. So we're going to just go on through, clear up our canvas, and get started. So I really didn't have much of an idea on how I wanted to ruin Kermit, because there's so many different takes making fun of Kermit that I've seen over the years. Like, I remember seeing an episode of Black Dynamite where they had Kermit the Frog being like a deadbeat dad type of character. I mean, for obvious reasons, it was legally distinct from being the Henson Company Kermit the Frog. And I don't know, I guess there's arguments for a bunch of different things and how they're supposed to be similar but distinct enough. So I kind of just wanted to make it like this big bother type of thing. Less of like a nightmare monster and more of just like a creature that you might see hopping around in the middle of the night. So instead of its neck frills being like draped down over its body, I was envisioning this like big old fat toady looking version of Kermit. So I started off drawing his head. I gave him like a star point for his frills. Thinking back to how like in nature, beings that would normally be prey have some kind of defining characteristic to help drive off predators. So this star is supposed to be like to pretend that it's like his face is like a flower on a rock, as opposed to him being this frog. I don't know, some like help deter birds from trying to eat him. I decided to give him more amphibious predator type of eyes. I was thinking about like tree frogs when I was doing the swirls. It's not quite right, but it's that general concept of like they have that darker outer area, and then they have like that big pupil in the middle and very little like noticeable color or whites. But then we're going to go through, give him his traditional color scheme of that darker, limey frog green over majority of his body. You can make the argument would be like moss on a stone, given the coloration. I don't know. I was trying to merge a couple too many concepts in here, I think. But then I went through, obviously, like I was saying earlier, don't be afraid to color the lines. You can just kind of go through and erase it. It's easier than crayon, color pencil, marker, paint. Well, maybe not paint. Paint, you can kind of just put some white over it after it dries. But that requires a little too much patience. But here I am, just kind of meticulously going through, clearing it up, what I need to clear up, and then fixing all the things that got distorted a little bit. Now we're going to go through and we're going to give him his nice bright red tongue. Looking back, I forgot that I was going to add a line down the center, but I suppose if he's still supposed to be like a puppety character, he wouldn't be guaranteed to have a line. Like that kind of split groove that we all have normally. But now that we were nice and thorough, we got him all colored in and everything like that. We're going to go through, and this took me not just the first try, I took 2 tries just on this highlight line. I kind of already had the idea as to what I wanted to do for the lighting. Like I mentioned, I wanted it to be like finding a frog on like your back patio at night. So he's gonna have some backlighting, just kind of helping shine where he's at. When I went through and I tried to make sure that I cleaned up that outline edge. Now, right here, it looks like I did pretty good on the first try. And then midway through, I realized I was on the wrong one. So, to accurately get our masking done, I then went through and I was getting everything masked off as best as I could. I did the outlining based off of the direct edge of Kermit, but then I decided I wanted to have a little bit more definition in the outlines, so I went through, gave it a second attempt on the masking layer before going through and kind of cleaning up that edge a little bit on his body to give it a little bit more of a rounding, as if there was a certain musculature as to where everything was at. And then, you know, give him a little demonic stuff. Let's make his eyes whited out, kind of as if they're glowing in the night. Not so much as like an evil force, but more so just, hey, I'm here, I have night vision, I'm a big old nocturnal frog creature. Went pretty basic on the background this time. Like I said, I wanted him to be found on a doorstep or something like that. So we're just having open door frame, blacked out wall, blacked out ground around him. I did add a couple of little touches here and there to make it a little bit better. Like I cleaned up his outline a little bit more after I realized there was stuff that was not quite taken care of on the initial pass. Then I went through and I kind of quote randomly smudged the outline of the door frame to show the light bleed a little bit. Just because light generally, whenever it goes past something, it's going to have some kind of trickle out, you know?
So, I mentioned that Rick and Morty is not exactly a kid's show for the sheer fact that it's not a kid's show. It's irreverent comedy that's literally on a channel section referred to as Adult Swim. So like it's not a kid show. But I can guarantee it's a big part of people my age or even a little bit younger's more formative kind of sense of comedy that they got from modern television. Because I remember I was in high school when Rick and Morty came out, and I would stay up late to catch episodes here and there. It was all pretty much everyone in my high school was talking about for the longest time. So yeah, and God, and then just so many things have branched off because of that. Like the show Solar Opposites on Hulu probably wouldn't have had much for footing had Rick and Morty not been such a massive success. The fan base had effectively brought back a sauce for McDonald's. Like, what even is this? What is our reality, man? Even like kids growing up nowadays, like the ones that go out and they play Fortnite. Rick and Morty has a Fortnite skin. Like, regardless of whether you liked the show or not, you can't deny that it's had some kind of cultural significance. Now, I'm not going to talk about anything in regards to any behind the scenes drama that has been in the news in the last couple years, but this is my way of saying, hey, yep, I know show nowadays is a little more problematic, but that being said, it still has a relatively big fan base. It's still, the earlier seasons were still things that I remember watching and I remember loving, and for me, it wasn't so much even the character designs. If anything, the character designs were only really all that cool to me because it was a non-traditional way to draw a pupil. I mean, how many shows were doing anything but like a circle or a circle with a cutout? And Rick and Morty was just like, you know what? We're gonna asterisks for pupils. Just crazy. Just actually nutty. But I suppose that now that we're about 4.5 minutes in, I should probably talk about what I'm actually doing with this. So, keeping in the theme of food and food adjacent things for the month of November, which is traditionally in the United States when we celebrate Thanksgiving, I decided I was going to do Rick and Morty because of their presidential turkey pardoning episode that they had. And I was going to take inspiration from the Cronenberg episodes that they've done. So effectively what happened is, what we can give this one backstory, I guess. Rick and Morty were on some kind of adventure thing, and Rick handed Morty a gun that did something, and Morty wasn't actually paying attention how to use it, and accidentally transmogrified himself and Rick into a mashed potato pile, and then they ended up getting mixed. It's very season one, very straightforward, but I mean, I wouldn't put it beyond the scope of the show. They had Rick turn himself into a pickle as a means to avoid dealing with personal trauma and its impact on his family. Like, that was a roller coaster of emotions in that episode. But now that we've determined that this is a pile of mashed potatoes with Rick and Morty as the soul, effectively, of it, we're gonna take a second here and we're gonna get some tools figured out. Because what good is mashed potatoes without a plate to eat them on? Now, I tried so hard. Guys, I tried so hard to just freehand draw it, but life me couldn't. So, if any of you are curious about it, what I'm doing here is I'm using an ellipses selection tool, and then I'm stroking the selection path, and super simple, super easy, super intuitive. Overall, it's like 3 or 4 clicks with the mouse on the software that I use, and we more or less end up getting a Rick and Morty style plate. Now, I guess just coloring, like, I started realizing numerous episodes of these art videos ago that I really should make sure that I have a high contrast background if I'm going to do white, so that's all that red really was there for. Now we're gonna take that gravy that's leaking out of Rick's mouth, and we're going to put it on our plate here. I wanted it to look a little more organic, so instead of just a straight line there, we've got those kind of waves and ripples from where I naturally had been coloring in the mass of it. But then we're going to zoom out. We're going to go snag a reference image here pretty soon. And that should be popping up any moment after I check these layers. And 3, 2, 1. There we go. So I kind of wanted to recreate the Butterbot meme thing with this too. As you guys will notice here, I'm kind of just copying the tablecloth, and we're then going to go through, give that edge line, go and get the pattern, and then after that's all said and done, it's going to be on a shading. So, hang tight for it. Yeah, I don't really got much else to add on this one. Just thank you to the Rick and Morty guys for making an amazing show that lasted as long as it has been, with as many wonderful cast choices as there have been. Because honestly, when it was first coming out, I probably wouldn't have watched it if it weren't for the fact that I loved Sarah Chalke, who is the voice of Summer. Not Summer. Wow. Beth from Scrubs, and just so many other random characters that show up through the series. But yeah, folks, that's going to about do it for this week's episode, I guess. So if there's something you'd like to see in a future one of these videos, feel free to leave a comment down below. If you want to keep up to date with the videos that I am making, feel free to subscribe and hit the notification bell. Again, it's always free. If you change your mind later, you can always unsubscribe. And if you just liked this video and you want to show some support, hit the like button. I mean, it's a lot of this is pretty intuitive. You hear it from everybody else on this platform. So, all right, folks. So, comments down below. How many of you actually knew that his name was Minnie Moose before watching this video? Go ahead. I'll give you a second. And good. All right. So, I was having a hell of a time trying to find like a pose that I liked for this little duder. As you'll probably end up seeing me go through and doing attempt after attempt after attempt here, especially on this little mouthpiece that I'm starting up on in this portion of it. Minnie Moose, I mentioned in the intro, is a holiday character because in the original run of Invader Zim, the only episode he officially showed up in was the most horrible Xmas ever. And I love sharing that trivia with people. They'll be like, oh yeah, no, I remember Invader Zim. I love Gurr. And I'm like, my favorite character is Minnie Moose. And they just go, wait, so what? Who? But honestly, I like most of these things that I bring up, there's a lot of character traits or history behind the characters that I love. So like Minnie Moose, I love that it's just kind of this little duder that doesn't actually make sense for the rest of the series because it only ever shows up in the one episode. So you have to have watched the Netflix movie to see him more, or read the comics. And God, I'm just a big nerd. Man, I mean, like, on top of that, Jhonen Vasquez, creator of Invader Zim, along with his other works such as like Squee or Devi, or his most infamous of the comic series, Johnny the Homicidal Maniac. I like that kind of scratchy, sketchy art style that he ends up using in a lot of those other works. And God, just going back and re-looking at some of these character designs from the original Invader Zim, it's very apparent. And yeah, I don't know. I'm a huge character design nerd too. So on top of like secret lore and hidden characters, I could just sit here and just stare at character designs all day and be like, oh yeah, he is kind of a dirty little hairy hobo boy. That makes sense why there's a couple little dots on top of his head. But I mean, let's get off of that for a little bit. So, if it wasn't apparent, to help celebrate the fact that in Invader Zim they all get little costumes and disguises, and the fact that this is going up the day before Halloween, I'm going to make a little Mini Moose jack-o'-lantern feller. I don't know what else there is to say at the moment. Yeah, orange, because pumpkin boy be orange. I wanted to kind of stick with the dried out stem kind of look, so that's kind of why we're going with more of a warm brown for those antlers, and then I end up using it for the actual stem itself. I wanted to kind of just look like maybe it's mutated to be that way, where it had 3 different stems, or maybe it was that the other stem pieces were glued to it. I don't know. They're just cute little drawings that I do for real, man. But right there, I was coloring the little feetsy duders as if they were... Honestly, at the time, I was thinking of them as if they would be pumpkin seeds. Like, scaling-wise, it makes no sense. So we'll just say it's some kind of stand to hold this overly round pumpkin up. But we know. But now I'm gonna go in and I'm gonna get those inner areas of the pumpkin where like the carved out mouth and the eyes would be at. I wasn't trying to stay too faithful to that grimy Johanna Vasquez style. I wanted this to be the character, but it could kind of go into any other cartoon. Similarly to like how Jahonen had references to Johnny the Homicidal Maniac in his other works kind of spread throughout his show, or how there's Gravity Falls references in Rick and Morty, or in the era of Invader Zim, how we would get the literal Jimmy Timmy fucking Power Hour. I just wanted it to be something a little more akin to like that. But in keeping with some of those kind of more macabre themes and kind of aggressively nihilistic tones that could be found in some of the episodes of Invader Zim, we're going to give the fire just kind of in the eyes, as if it's like someone's looking at this extinguished jack-o'-lantern and is getting scared. When I draw these things, they make a little bit more sense to me as to why I do them, but then when I go back and I record these voiceovers, I almost entirely forget what I did, in what order, and for how long. I mean, even right here, I was trying to figure out what kind of background I wanted to do. I ended up going for like a really simple front porch kind of look. Any of you guys who have seen more than 2 of my videos know I kind of have a standard approach for these things. I either make them look like they're being showcased, or I make them look like they're small patio trinkets and statuettes. So shouldn't come as a surprise that the literal jack-o'-lantern would be a small patio statuette type of thing. But yeah, now we're gonna go through. We're going through. We're getting that black masking for where our shadows are at, and then we did some white dots around the pumpkin itself. This time, a little less to be for highlights, and a little bit more to be like blemishes on the face of the pumpkin, while also mimicking, like I said earlier, Mini Moose's character design has a couple of dots on the head. That's pretty much well across for most characters in Invader Zim. They've got some kind of dots where there would be hair or fuzzy things. So I wanted to just kind of at least keep that theming in mind when I was putting those dots all of white all over the place. But then coming in here, I believe, is where I finally go through and I do that patio, like I was telling you guys. Trying to build some kind of perspective while drawing out these planks of wood that honestly look more like tile, looking back, before adding some cracks into what would be the baseboard or the molding. I don't know house terms. I'm a guy that draws stuff on the internet and works a day job and a second job, and like I said, does this on the internet. I don't know how to build houses. But so for the patio itself, I wanted to go with more of a gray version of that similar brown, or not gray, a desaturated version of that similar brown that was used on the antlers. Just kind of trying to keep it indicative that it's wood. We did a lighter kind of periwinkle color for the house, just kind of peeking up in the back there. Trying to work as contrasting colors with the pumpkin before adding that drop shadow. But with that, folks, that's going to about do it for this week's episode. Thank you all so very much for watching, and remember, if there's any suggestions you have for a future video, leave a comment down below. If you liked the video, hit the like button. If you want to see more of my future content, feel free to subscribe. If you end up finding out you don't like it later on, you can always just unsubscribe. But again, folks, thank you all so very much for watching. I've been Offline Spider, and bye.